Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're really unearthing the strategic insights from a document that, well, many might overlook, Visa's annual 10K report.
Yeah,
Our mission, as always, is to sort of cut through the corporate jargon, pull out the most compelling nuggets of knowledge for you,
right.
giving you a sharp, informed perspective without, the information overload.
That's right. And look, this isn't just some dry financial filing. It's actually a remarkably candid look into how a company that, well, facilitates a huge portion of global commerce thinks,
Uh-huh.
how it strategizes, and frankly, how it battles its challenges every single day.
Yeah.
We're stepping beyond the balance sheets here to understand their core identity, their ambitious growth plans, and the really intricate global chessboard they're playing on.
So let's really get into this then. We've got their own words on everything from what they truly consider their business to be, how they're fueling growth, the complex regulatory world they navigate, and also those significant risks that, well, probably keep their leadership up at night. You're going to walk away with a much richer understanding of this financial giant, I think.
I hope so.
So when most of us think about Visa, our minds probably jump straight to the credit card in our wallet.
Sure, the plastic.
But this deep dive shows a much grander ambition. Their stated purpose is, and I'm quoting here, to uplift everyone, everywhere, by being the best way to pay and be paid.
It's quite a statement, isn't it?
It is pretty bold for a payments company.
And what's truly fascinating here is tracing their evolution, right? Since 1958, they've moved so far beyond just consumer to business, C2B payments.
Which is what we mostly think of.
Exactly. Their own network, VisaNet, has transformed into what they actually call a network of networks,
Okay.
connecting and facilitating money movement across, over 200 countries and territories.
Wow.
I mean, this sheer scale, that's their foundational competitive moat, really.
That expansion is absolutely critical. And it's not just the scale, right? It's about who they're including now. They've consciously broadened their traditional four-party model, cardholder, merchant, their banks.
The classic setup.
Right, to actively integrate digital banks, digital wallets, all these new fintech innovators, even governments and NGOs.
That's a big shift.
It really is. It's not just incremental. It feels like a fundamental change in how they see their role in the whole global financial system.
And that broader model,
Yeah.
well, it fundamentally enables a vast new array of payment flows.
Like what?
Their report highlights how they now facilitate person-to-person, P2P,
Okay.
business-to-consumer, B2C, business-to-business, B2B, and even government-to-consumer, G2C payments.
Right.
I mean, get this. In fiscal 2024 alone, Visa processed an astounding 234 billion transactions on its networks.
Billion.
Billion, with B. That averages out to 829 million transactions every single day.
That's just hard to comprehend.
It really is. And it's not just an astonishing number. It highlights their almost ubiquitous presence. They're like the foundational rail for global commerce.
Indispensable.
Indispensable, but also, highly scrutinized because of that.
Makes sense. And it's important to remember they're not just processing, right? They offer this whole suite of value-added services.
Right, beyond just moving the money.
Yeah, things like issuing solutions, acceptance solutions, advanced risk, and identity management.
Fraud protection.
Exactly. Open banking tools, advisory services. These aren't just little extras. It feels like they're about creating stickier relationships with their clients, the banks and merchants.
Helping them manage everything.
Yeah, fraud detection, optimizing payment flows. Plus, you see their brand everywhere, the Olympics, NFL, Red Bull, Formula One.
The big sponsorship.
Shows how deeply embedded they are in global culture and commerce, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So, zooming out a bit to the bigger picture, Visa's strategy is laser-focused on speeding up revenue growth across three core areas.
Okay.
Their traditional consumer payments, opening up these significant new flows of money we touched on, and expanding those value-added services you just mentioned.
This is where it gets really strategic, I think. They've identified this massive, untapped global opportunity, over $20 trillion.
Huge number.
And that's excluding Russia and China, money that's currently handled by cash, checks, other, less efficient methods.
Right. It's not just about digitizing paper receipts.
Yeah.
It's about unlocking entirely new efficiencies, maybe even new economic activity, by bringing all that onto a standard trackable network.
So they're not just selling a service, they're trying to redefine how value moves globally.
Exactly. A much more ambitious goal.
Yeah.
And they're pursuing these new flows with real intensity.
How so?
Well, for businesses, their Visa commercial solutions offer these tailored suites for payment, reconciliation, data management, spend controls, automating payments
Basically bringing that smooth consumer experience.
into the often clunky world of B2B payments,
Yeah.
which has immense potential for efficiency gains.
Then there's Visa Direct. That sounds like a potential game changer for how money moves.
It really could be. It facilitates domestic and cross-border money movement. And the potential reach is staggering, over 11 billion endpoints.
11 billion? How?
Well, that's 4 billion cards, 3.5 billion bank accounts, and 3.5 billion digital wallets they can potentially reach.
Incredible reach.
In 2024, Visa Direct processed nearly 10 billion transactions
Wow.
for over 550 partners across 195-plus countries.
So this really positions them as a kind of universal money-moving network.
Pretty much. Supporting everything from, sending money to friends, faster payouts for gig workers, even quick merchant settlements.
Yeah.
It truly is a remarkable platform. And their commitment to innovation, you see it in their acquisitions too.
Right. They've been buying companies.
Yeah, January 2024, they bought Pismo Holdings. It's a cloud-native issuer processing and core banking platform. Cost nearly $1 billion.
Okay.
And then in September 2024, they signed a deal to acquire FeatureSpace.
What do they do?
They're a leader in real-time AI for payments protection. So, security.
Ah, that makes sense. So these aren't just random buys.
No, very strategic. It highlights Visa's proactive defense against disruption, right? They're integrating cutting-edge tech to future-proof their core systems against, nimble fintechs and evolving cyber threats.
Cementing their position as the sort of trusted backbone.
Exactly.
So they're expanding reach and investing heavily in the underlying tech and security, especially with AI becoming so big. And it seems like fintechs are a huge part of the strategy, too.
Absolutely critical. The report explicitly calls fintechs a vital growth engine.
Really?
Yeah. Visa signed over 650 commercial partnerships with fintechs globally in fiscal 2024. That's up 30% year over year.
It's a big jump.
It is. And these aren't just superficial handshakes. These partnerships are fundamentally, extending credit at the point of sale, making cross-border money flows more efficient, bringing totally new payment experiences to life.
So it's like a symbiotic relationship.
Very much so. Benefits both sides, pushes innovation forward.
Okay, but even with all this growth and innovation, Visa operates in a really scrutinized environment, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe the biggest hurdle they face, based on the report, is this complex, always changing world of global regulation.
That's a huge one. And a critical question that comes out of this is, how do you operate smoothly across 200-plus countries when the rules are so different and always shifting?
Yeah.
The report points to big risks around interchange rates, those fees between banks, preferred routing deciding which network processes a payment, even data localization rules like in India, where data has to stay in the country.
Right, that adds complexity.
Huge complexity and cost. Plus, there's underlying pressure from governments sometimes wanting to, maybe share intellectual property.
And what's really fascinating is this growing global push for domestic payment solutions, isn't it?
Very much so. The report mentions Europe's EPIIA, the European Payments Initiative.
That's their big push for a unified Eurozone system.
Exactly. Ambitious. We also see regional efforts in the Gulf Cooperation Council, Southeast Asia, even countries like Nigeria, South Africa, mandating onshore processing.
It signals this desire for, national digital sovereignty.
Precisely. And the broader context here is geopolitical events, right?
Yeah.
Like the sanctions against Russia.
Yeah.
That's intensified concerns in many nations about relying too much on U.S. financial services.
So countries like the BRICS nations.
They're actively looking to lessen their dependence on Western payment systems. Yeah.
And this creates a potential threat of, what do they call it, disintermediation.
Right, meaning new national systems could just bypass traditional networks like Visa altogether.
Especially with things like central bank digital currencies coming.
Exactly. Like the European Central Bank's digital euro project. That's a space to watch.
Definitely. Okay, so beyond regulation, they also face constant pressure from merchants and processors, right?
Always. Lobbying, lawsuits, always pushing to lower acceptance costs, reduce those interchange rates.
It's like a perpetual tug of war.
It really is. It affects their revenue model, forces continuous negotiation.
And then, of course, the elephant in the room, cybersecurity.
Ever present. The report is clear about the sophisticated, evolving nature of threats. They even mention threats using generative AI now.
Oh, wow.
And the potential cascading impacts if something goes wrong. They detail their multiple lines of defense, their third-party risk management. And importantly, they do note They weren't aware of any material incidents in the past 3 fiscal years.
Which is good, but
But it highlights the ongoing pervasive nature of the risk. They can never let their guard down.
so what does all this mean for their day-to-day? They also talk about challenges just finding and keeping the right people, don't they?
Yeah, attracting and retaining highly qualified, diverse talent, especially in really competitive areas like fintech and cybersecurity. It's a war for talent out there.
I bet. Plus, the report goes into detail about this complex litigation landscape. They mention U.S. covered litigation and VE territory covered litigation. What's that about?
Right, that distinction is basically ongoing legal battles over interchange fees and other practices, separating the fights within the United States versus those in Visa's European territories.
Okay.
And to manage these potential liabilities, they actually have retrospective responsibility plans and an escrow account holding over $3 billion.
$3 billion set aside just for legal fights.
Essentially, yeah,
Yeah.
dedicated fund. It just shows that legal challenges are a substantial ongoing part of doing business at this scale.
Wow. Okay, so with all these ambitious plans and these significant headwinds, how does it all shake out on the bottom line? Let's look at the financials.
Okay.
Fiscal 2024, Visa saw its net revenue go up 10% over the prior year.
Pretty solid growth,
Yeah.
primarily driven by strong increases in cross-border volume, that's payments moving between countries,
Uh-huh.
processed transactions, and just overall payments volume. But interestingly, that growth was partly offset by higher client incentives.
Ah, so they're spending more to keep clients happy or gain market share?
Seems like it. A strategic investment, even if it dings the top-line net revenue a bit. Currency exchange rates, luckily for them, didn't have a material impact this year.
So, thinking about the listener, what does this mean for you day to day? I guess Visa pushing into new flows like P2P means sending money to friends or getting paid for gig work could get easier.
Potentially faster, more seamless, yeah.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, how they navigate those regulatory pressures on interchange rates, well, that could indirectly impact the fees merchants pay.
Which might eventually affect prices we see at the checkout.
Could do. It's that constant dance between innovation, competition, and regulation that ultimately impacts your wallet.
Right. And their operating expenses also tell a story, don't they? Significant investments in personnel.
Reflects that strategy to invest in future growth, including through those acquisitions we talked about.
And marketing expenses were up too.
Yeah, big spending on high-profile campaigns like the upcoming Paris Olympics and Paralympics. Really,
They also talk about their liquidity, having a lot of cash on hand.
impressive liquidity, yeah. As of September 30, 2024, $12 billion in cash and cash equivalents.
Okay.
But what's really insightful is they specifically set aside $11.2 billion of their total available liquidity just to fund daily settlement.
Meaning,
Meaning, if a bank client suddenly couldn't meet its obligations one day, Visa has the cash ready to make sure the system doesn't seize up.
wow, that's a huge safety net.
It's a massive indicator of their financial resilience and their commitment to keeping that network running no matter what.
And for shareholders.
They've been active with share buybacks, still have $13.1 billion authorized for that as of September 2024, and they declared $4.2 billion in dividends in fiscal 2024.
So signaling confidence.
Strong confidence in their financial health and future prospects, yeah. And commitment to returning capital, even while they're expanding aggressively and facing all these complex challenges.
Lastly, the report mentions the complexities around income taxes, billions in unrecognized tax benefits.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even for these global giants, the financial picture is never simple. Estimating their tax bill requires significant judgment, involves a lot of uncertainty, and huge sums are tied up in intricate tax rules.
Okay, so wrapping up, there you have it, a deep dive into Visa's world. It reveals a company that's not just a titan in digital payments, but one that's, well, relentlessly adapting, innovating, and navigating this world defined by complex regulations, evolving threats, and intense competition from really all sides.
We've seen how they're expanding way beyond traditional cards, pushing into new money flows,
Yeah.
using those fintech partnerships strategically.
Yeah.
But equally, we've seen how they're grappling with these powerful regulatory pressures, geopolitical shifts that could fundamentally reshape global payments.
Yeah.
Plus the constant need for top-notch cybersecurity and talent.
What really stands out to you from this deep dive, for me, it's just the sheer scale. That number of daily transactions is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, that's staggering.
Combined with the complexity of managing all that global regulatory fragmentation and the fierce competition, it feels like a constant high-stakes balancing act.
And that brings us to, I think, a really critical question moving forward.
Okay.
As countries increasingly push to localize data, develop their own national payment systems, how will global networks like Visa balance their universal reach, their interconnectedness, with these growing demands for national digital sovereignty?
That's a big one. Universal reach versus national control.
It's a fundamental tension,
Mm.
and how they navigate that will undoubtedly define the future of how money moves around the world.
A really thought-provoking challenge to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We hope you feel a little more well-informed and maybe a little more curious about this intricate world of global payments. Until next time.